Hey everyone, it's Zoe here. Before I start, I need you to understand something. This isn't just another family drama story. This is about the moment I realized that the person who was supposed to love me unconditionally saw me as nothing more than a burden. And how that realization changed everything. I was 17 when my mother told me I was worthless to her. Not in a moment of anger. Not during a heated argument. She said it calmly, deliberately, like she was commenting on the weather. We were sitting in our cramped kitchen in Detroit. The wallpaper was peeling, the faucet dripped constantly, and the fluorescent light flickered every few seconds. My younger brother Marcus was at basketball practice. My stepdad Ron was at work. It was just the two of us. I had just shown her my acceptance letter to Michigan State University. Full ride. Academic scholarship. I'd worked my ass off for 4 years. Perfect grades, volunteer work, 3 part-time jobs to save money. I thought she'd be proud. Instead, she barely glanced at the letter before sliding it back across the table. "You're not going," she said flatly. I stared at her. "What do you mean I'm not going?" "Mom, it's a full scholarship. It won't cost you anything." She lit a cigarette, blowing smoke toward the stained ceiling. "You think I'm stupid, Zoe? Full ride doesn't mean free. There's still books, housing deposits, fees. And who's gonna help me here? You think I can manage this house, your brother, and everything else by myself?" My hands were shaking. "Mom, I've been planning this for years. You knew I was applying to colleges. You signed the financial aid forms." "I signed them to shut you up," she snapped. "But reality's reality, sweetheart. Marcus needs new gear for his AAU team. That's $3,000. Ron's truck needs transmission work. That's another $2,000. Your college dreams? That's a luxury we can't afford." I felt something crack inside my chest. But Marcus's basketball isn't a luxury? His travel tournaments, his private coaching sessions, his brand-name sneakers, none of that's a luxury. Her eyes went cold. Stone cold. Marcus has potential. Marcus has a future. He could get a D1 scholarship, maybe even go pro. "You." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You're a B+ student with a boring personality. Nobody's gonna give you anything special. You're just average." The word hit me like a slap. "I got a full academic scholarship to a state university," I said, my voice breaking. "How is that average?" She stubbed out her cigarette and looked at me with something worse than anger. "Indifference. Because that's the ceiling for you, Zoe. Marcus. The sky's the limit. But you've already peaked. Going to some mediocre college to get some mediocre degree so you can work some mediocre job? That's not an investment. That's a waste of time. A waste of, Mom, it's my education. It's my future. And this family is my future," she said, standing up. "You want to be selfish? Fine. But don't expect me to celebrate it. You want my blessing to abandon us? You're not getting it." I stood up too, my legs wobbling. "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'd come home on breaks. I'd help when I could. This is a 45-minute drive, not across the country." She crossed her arms, blocking the doorway. "You know what your problem is, Zoe? You've always thought you were better than us. Better than this house, better than this neighborhood, better than your own family. You think a piece of paper from some college is gonna change who you are? You're nothing special. You never have been. And honestly," she leaned in close, her breath reeking of menthol and coffee, "you're worthless to me if you walk out that door." The kitchen went silent except for that dripping faucet. Drip, drip, drip. "You don't mean that," I whispered. "I absolutely do," she said. "If you choose some fantasy over your family, over your brother's future, then you're dead to me. You'll be out there alone with nobody. No family, no support, nothing. And when you fail, and you will fail, don't come crawling back here expecting sympathy." I looked at her, really looked at her, and I realized something terrifying. She meant every word. This wasn't manipulation. This wasn't a test. She genuinely believed I was worthless unless I served her purposes. "Okay," I said quietly. "Then I guess I'm worthless." I walked past her, went to my room, and started packing. She didn't try to stop me. She didn't apologize. She didn't even follow me. Marcus came home 2 hours later and found me stuffing clothes into garbage bags. He was 14, tall for his age, with my mom's eyes and Ron's athletic build. "What are you doing?" he asked from my doorway. "Leaving." "Why?" I couldn't look at him. "Ask Mom." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Is this about college?" "Yeah. She said you were being selfish." I laughed, a broken sound. "Of course she did." Marcus shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "Look, Zoe. I know she's hard on you. But she's just stressed. Dad's truck is really messed up, and my tournament fees. Marcus, I interrupted, finally turning to face him. Do you think I'm worthless? He blinked. What? No. Why would? Do you think my dreams matter less than yours? That's not. Because Mom does. She told me to my face that I'm nothing special. That investing in me is a waste. Do you agree with her? He looked down at his expensive basketball shoes. The ones I'd helped pay for with my wages from McDonald's. I don't know what to say, Zoe. Then don't say anything. I zipped up the last bag and walked out of my childhood bedroom for the final time. Ron was home by then, standing in the living room with my mother. He looked uncomfortable but said nothing. He never did. He'd married my mom when I was 12, and he'd learned early that choosing sides meant choosing hers. You'll regret this, my mother said as I reached the front door. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. I turned back to her. No, Mom. The biggest mistake would be staying here and letting you convince me I'm worthless. I'd rather fail on my own terms than succeed on yours. I walked out into the humid June evening with 3 garbage bags of clothes, my laptop, $217 in cash, and absolutely no plan. I was terrified. But I was also, for the first time in my life, free. The first 3 months were hell. I stayed with my best friend Jasmine for 2 weeks until her parents, lovely people, but struggling themselves, gently told me they couldn't host me long term. I crashed on another friend's couch for a week. Then another. I was wearing out my welcome everywhere. I deferred my Michigan State enrollment to January, citing family circumstances. The admissions office was understanding but firm. I had 1 semester to get my situation together, or I'd lose my spot. I found a shared room in a house with 5 other people, mostly community college students and service workers, for $350 a month. My room was actually a converted sun porch. No heat, no AC, no privacy. But it was mine. I worked 3 jobs. Morning shift at a bakery, afternoon shift at a call center, weekend nights at a sports bar. I was pulling 70-hour weeks, sleeping 4 hours a night, living on ramen and peanut butter sandwiches. I lost 15 pounds in 6 weeks. But I made it to January. I started classes. Michigan State was everything I'd hoped for and nothing I'd expected. The academics were challenging but exhilarating. My professors actually knew my name. I was learning, growing, becoming someone new. But I was also drowning in exhaustion. Working 30 hours a week while taking 15 credits was destroying me. My grades were slipping. I was falling asleep in lectures. I had a breakdown in the library bathroom where I cried for 20 minutes straight. That's when I met Professor Elena Martinez. She taught my Introduction to Psychology course and noticed I'd missed 3 classes in a row. She called me into her office hours, not to scold me, but to talk. Zoe, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. What's going on? Your first papers were brilliant. Now you're barely turning in assignments. I broke down. I told her everything. My mother. The ultimatum. My living situation. My 3 jobs. My exhaustion. Professor Martinez listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Can I tell you something? She said finally. I was you. 23 years ago, I was exactly you. Different circumstances, but same story. Family didn't believe in me. Thought college was a waste. I left with nothing. What did you do? I asked, wiping my eyes. I got angry, and I used that anger as fuel. She leaned forward. Zoe, you're talented. You're resilient. But you're not going to make it like this. Something has to change. She helped me apply for emergency housing assistance through the university. She connected me with a campus job that paid better and had flexible hours. She became my academic advisor and mentor, checking in on me weekly. Over the next 2 years, I rebuilt my life brick by brick. I graduated with a 3.7 GPA and a degree in psychology. I got accepted into a master's program in clinical counseling with a full assistantship. I started working as a research assistant, then as a counseling intern at a community mental health center. By the time I was 24, I was a licensed therapist making $68,000 a year. Not rich, but stable, secure, independent. I hadn't spoken to my mother in 7 years. Marcus reached out occasionally via Facebook. Brief messages, happy birthday. Hope you're doing okay. Mom asks about you sometimes. I never responded. I built a new life, and they weren't part of it. Then, one Tuesday evening in October, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, Zoe. The voice was older, rougher, but unmistakable. Zoe, it's Mom. My blood went cold. How did you get this number? Marcus gave it to me. Zoe, I need to talk to you.
It's important. I don't have anything to say to you.
Please. Just give me 5 minutes. I'm begging you. I'd never heard her beg for anything. Despite every instinct screaming at me to hang up, I stayed on the line. You have 3 minutes. Talk. She took a shaky breath. Ron left me. 6 months ago. He met someone else and just left. Took his truck and his stuff and walked out. Didn't even leave a note. I felt nothing. No sympathy. No satisfaction. Just cold emptiness. Okay, I said. And Marcus didn't get his D1 scholarship. He got injured junior year. Torn ACL. His basketball career is over. He's working at a warehouse now, living in Indiana with his girlfriend. Okay. And I lost my job. The company downsized. I've been unemployed for 4 months. I'm behind on the mortgage. The bank sent a foreclosure notice. I'm going to lose the house, Zoe. There it was. The reason for the call. Why are you telling me this? I asked, though I knew exactly why. Because I need help, she said, her voice cracking. I need money. Just enough to catch up on the mortgage. Maybe 15,000. I know you're doing well. Marcus saw on Facebook that you're a therapist, that you have your own place. I thought maybe. No. Silence. Zoe, please. I said no. I'm your mother. You told me I was worthless, I said, my voice deadly calm. You told me I was nothing special. You told me that investing in me was a waste. You told me if I walked out that door, I'd be dead to you. Remember that. I was angry. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. You meant every single word. And you know what? You were right about one thing. I did fail. Over and over. I failed classes because I was working 3 jobs. I failed at relationships because I had trust issues. I failed at asking for help because I was terrified of being a burden. Zoe. But I succeeded too. I succeeded in spite of you. I built a life without you. I became someone without you. And now you want me to rescue you because your golden child didn't pan out and your husband bailed? Now I'm not worthless. Now I'm worth calling. She was crying now. I was wrong, okay? I was wrong about you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't pay my bills, Mom. Sorry doesn't erase 7 years. And sorry definitely doesn't buy your house back. So you're just going to let me lose everything? You let me leave with nothing, I said. You told me I'd fail and you didn't care. Well, you failed, and I don't care. Seems fair to me. I hung up. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But I didn't feel guilty. I felt powerful. For the first time in my relationship with my mother, I had the power. 3 days later, she showed up at my apartment. I was coming home from a session with a client when I saw her sitting on the steps outside my building. She looked older than I remembered. Grayer. Thinner. Worn down by life. For a split second, I felt pity. Then I remembered her words. You're worthless to me. You need to leave, I said, walking past her toward the entrance. She stood up quickly. Zoe, please. Just hear me out. I heard you out on the phone. The answer is still no. I drove 6 hours to see you. The least you can do is give me 5 minutes. I turned to face her. You drove 6 hours because you want something from me. Let's be honest about what this is. I want a relationship with my daughter, she said. Is that so terrible? It is when you only want that relationship because you need my money. That's not. Okay, yes, I need help financially. But I also miss you. I've missed you every single day for 7 years. Funny how you never called to tell me that until you needed something. She flinched. I didn't think you'd want to hear from me. You made it pretty clear you were done with us. You made it pretty clear you were done with me first, I shot back. I was 17 years old. I got a full scholarship to college and you told me I was average, boring, and worthless. What exactly did you expect me to do with that? I was protecting Marcus's future. By destroying mine? She fell silent. I sighed, exhausted. Look, I don't know what you thought was going to happen here. Did you think I'd see you and just forget everything? Did you think you could show up and I'd hand you a check? I thought maybe you'd have some compassion, she said quietly. I thought maybe you'd understand what it's like to struggle. You've been there. You know how hard it is. I do know, I agreed. I know exactly how hard it is. And I also know that when I was struggling, you didn't give a damn. So why should I care now? Because you're better than me, she said, and her voice broke. You're better than I ever was. You're kinder. You're stronger. You made something of yourself despite everything. And I was wrong about you.
I was so wrong.
I wanted to stay angry. I wanted to hold onto my rage like a shield. But her words cracked something inside me.
Why did you say those things?
I asked. Why did you treat me like I didn't matter? She wiped her eyes.
Because I was jealous.
That shocked me.
What?
I was jealous of you, she repeated. You were smart. You were ambitious. You had opportunities one never had. I dropped out of high school when I got pregnant with you. I worked dead-end jobs my whole life. And here you were, my daughter, with a chance to escape all of it. And instead of being proud, I was bitter.
I resented you for having what I couldn't have.
I felt sick.
So you tried to sabotage me.
I tried to keep you small so I wouldn't feel so small myself, she admitted. And I convinced myself it was about Marcus, about family responsibility, about financial priorities. But really, I just couldn't stand the idea of you succeeding where I failed. The honesty was jarring and painful. That's really messed up, Mom.
I know.
We stood there in the fading October light, two strangers connected by biology and trauma.
I can't give you money, I said finally.
I won't. Not because I don't have it, but because I refuse to be your backup plan. I refuse to validate the idea that I only matter when I'm useful to you. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face.
I understand.
But, I continued, my voice softening slightly, if you actually want a relationship with me, a real one, not a transactional one, then maybe we can talk.
Maybe.
But it starts with you actually seeing me as a person, not as a solution to your problems.
I do see you, she whispered.
I see you now. And I'm so ashamed of how long it took. Good, I said. You should be ashamed. Sit with that. Figure out what kind of person you want to be. And if you can actually do the work to rebuild trust, and I mean actual work, not just words, then maybe we can try. But it's going to be on my terms this time, not yours. She nodded. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for not slamming the door completely.
Don't make me regret it, I said and walked into my building. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. 3 pages, handwritten. She didn't ask for money. She didn't make excuses. She wrote about her childhood, her regrets, her failures as a parent. She wrote about watching me walk out 7 years ago and convincing herself she'd done the right thing. At the end, she wrote, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to help me. But I want you to know that I see you now. I see the woman you've become, and she's extraordinary.
Not because of me, but despite me.
And I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve a place in it. I cried reading that letter.
Not because it fixed anything, but because it was real.
It didn't erase the past. But it was a start. Or so I thought. 3 months after my mother's letter, things took a turn I never saw coming. Marcus called me at 11 p.m. on a Friday. I almost didn't answer. We weren't exactly close, but something told me to pick up. Zoe. His voice was panicked. Zoe, I need your help.
It's about Mom.
My stomach dropped. What happened? Is she okay? She's fine. But I found something. Something bad. Can I come see you tomorrow? I need to show you in person. Marcus, you're scaring me.
What is this about?
I can't explain over the phone. Please, Zoe.
This is serious.
We agreed to meet the next morning at a coffee shop halfway between our cities. I barely slept that night. Marcus was already there when I arrived, looking exhausted and stressed. He had a folder in front of him that he kept touching nervously. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. What's going on? He slid the folder across the table. Mom asked me to grab some boxes from her storage unit last week. Documents she needed for her bankruptcy filing. I was looking through them to find the right ones, and I found this. I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, credit card bills, loan agreements. But there was something else. Something that made my blood run cold. A life insurance policy. In my name. What the hell is this? I whispered. That's what I want to know, Marcus said grimly. Mom took out a life insurance policy on you. 5 years ago. $500,000.
With her as the sole beneficiary.
The coffee shop seemed to tilt around me. That's not possible. You can't take out a policy on someone without their knowledge. You can if you forge their signature, Marcus said, his voice tight. Look at the application. I flipped through the pages. There was my signature. Or something close to it. But I'd never signed this document. Never even seen it. She forged my signature to take out a life insurance policy on me? I felt sick.
Why would she?
Marcus's face was pale. Zoe, there's more. After I found this, I got worried. So I checked her computer.
The one she left at her old place that I've been storing for her. And
And there are search histories from the past 4 months. He pulled out printed pages.
look at this.
I looked. My hands started shaking. Searches about poison, about making deaths look like accidents, about how long it takes to investigate suspicious deaths, about life insurance payout timelines. This can't be real, I said, but my voice sounded distant, hollow.
There's more, Marcus continued, and now I could see he was close to tears.
She's been tracking you. I found a calendar where she's written down your schedule, where you work, what time you leave, what route you take home. There are photos of your apartment building.
Photos of you walking to your car.
The world tilted. Marcus, what are you saying?
I'm saying, his voice broke.
I'm saying I think Mom was planning to kill you. The words hung in the air between us. That's insane, I said automatically. People don't, mothers don't. Zoe, look at the evidence. The forged insurance policy. The searches about poison and accidents. The tracking of your schedule. The photos.
What else could this mean?
I stared at the documents spread across the table. Individually, maybe they could be explained away. But together they painted a horrifying picture. She tried to kill herself 3 months ago, I said slowly. Or at least, that's what we thought.
But what if?
What if it was fake? Marcus finished. What if she was testing you?
Seeing if you'd come, if you still cared, if you'd be easy to manipulate back into her life.
I felt like I was going to be sick. I filed a police report yesterday, Marcus said. I didn't want to, but Zoe, I can't let her hurt you. You're my sister. You're the only family I have who actually gave a damn about me beyond what I could do for them. Tears were streaming down my face now. Did you confront her?
No.
The detective said not to. They want to gather more evidence first. But Zoe, you need to be careful.
You need to.
I need to what? Get a restraining order against my own mother for planning to murder me? The hysteria was rising in my voice. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. I know, Marcus said, reaching across to grab my hand.
I know.
And I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for not seeing what she was back then. I'm sorry for not standing up for you. I'm sorry for believing her when she said you were selfish. You deserved better.
You've always deserved better.
I squeezed his hand, unable to speak. The detective wants to talk to you, Marcus continued. Her name is Detective Rivera. She specializes in family violence cases. She said cases like this are rare, but not unheard of. Parents who see their children as assets, who can rationalize violence when they're desperate enough. I helped her, I whispered. When she supposedly tried to kill herself, I went to the hospital. I helped her get discharged. I made sure she had groceries and medication. I was trying to be compassionate, and all along she was. I couldn't finish the sentence. Marcus's expression was anguished.
I know.
And that's what makes her a monster. She used your kindness against you. She's been planning this for months, maybe years.
Waiting for the right opportunity. What happens now?
The police are investigating. They're monitoring her phone, her internet activity. They're trying to build a case. But Zoe, you need to be safe. You need to. Maybe you should stay somewhere else for a while.
Somewhere she doesn't know about.
I nodded numbly. Over the next 2 weeks, my life became a nightmare. Detective Rivera was kind but firm. She showed me the evidence they'd gathered. It was worse than Marcus had described. My mother had been researching my medical history, looking for allergies or conditions she could exploit. She befriended one of my neighbors, casually asking about my routine. She'd even applied for a job at the coffee shop near my office but didn't get it. She'd been patient, methodical, calculating. She's been planning this like a business transaction, Detective Rivera told me. That level of premeditation, it's chilling. Most crimes of passion are impulsive. But your mother has been treating this like a project. That makes her extremely dangerous. They set up surveillance, monitored her movements, waited for her to make a move. And then she did. She purchased rat poison. A significant amount. That was enough for an arrest warrant. They arrested my mother on a cold November morning. I wasn't there, but Detective Rivera called me immediately afterward.
We got her, she said.
She's in custody. You're safe now. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt numb. The arraignment was 2 days later. Marcus and I sat in the courtroom together, watching as our mother was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit. She looked small, defeated. When her eyes found mine across the room, I saw something there. Fear, maybe, Or regret. But then her lawyer whispered something to her, and her expression hardened. Became defiant. The charges were read: attempted murder, insurance fraud, forgery, stalking. She pleaded not guilty. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Sandra Chen, laid out the evidence in her opening statement. The forged insurance policy. The search histories. The tracking calendar. The photographs. The poison purchase. This was not a crime of passion, Chen said. This was a calculated, methodical plan to murder the defendant's own daughter for financial gain. A daughter who had committed no crime except succeeding in life. A daughter whose only fault was refusing to bankrupt herself to save her mother from the consequences of her own poor decisions. My mother's lawyer, Robert Kellerman, tried to argue that his client was mentally ill. That her suicide attempt proved she wasn't in her right mind. That she never would have gone through with it. But the prosecution had an expert witness, a forensic psychologist who'd evaluated my mother. Mrs. Harrison's planning was too detailed, too organized to be the work of someone experiencing a psychotic break, the psychologist testified. She understood right from wrong. She was capable of distinguishing reality from delusion. She simply believed that her need for money justified taking her daughter's life. That's not mental illness. That's moral bankruptcy. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I had to testify. Walking into that courtroom, taking the stand, looking at my mother sitting at the defense table, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. The prosecutor started gently. Ms. Harrison, can you describe your relationship with your mother growing up? I took a breath and told them everything. About being 17. About my scholarship. About being called worthless. About leaving with nothing. And when your mother contacted you after 7 years of silence, what was your initial reaction? I thought maybe she wanted a relationship, I said. But she wanted money. And when I refused, she showed up at my apartment. She wrote me letters. She told me she'd been wrong about me, that she was sorry, that she wanted to rebuild our relationship. Did you believe her? I wanted to, I admitted. When she attempted suicide, I went to the hospital. I helped her. I thought I was being compassionate. I didn't know she was manipulating me. I didn't know every vulnerable moment was calculated to pull me back into her life so she could kill me. The defense attorney tried to break me down during cross-examination. Ms. Harrison, isn't it true that you abandoned your family at 17? I was told I was worthless. I didn't abandon them. They rejected me. Isn't it true that you refused to help your mother when she was facing homelessness? Yes, because I'm not an ATM. I'm a person. Isn't it possible that your mother's actions stemmed from desperation, not malice? I looked directly at the jury. Desperation might explain asking me for money. It doesn't explain forging documents. It doesn't explain researching poisons. It doesn't explain tracking my movements and planning to murder me. That's not desperation. That's premeditated murder for profit. Marcus testified too. He was nervous but honest. I enabled her, he said, his voice shaking. I let her spend everything on me. I believed her when she said Zoe was selfish. I didn't question why she needed so much money for my basketball career. I was a kid, but that's not an excuse. I should have seen what she was doing to my sister. What was your reaction when you found the life insurance documents? The prosecutor asked. I felt sick, Marcus said. My mother was planning to murder my sister for money. My sister, who did nothing wrong except refuse to be a victim anymore. I went straight to the police because I wasn't going to let her hurt Zoe. The most damaging testimony came from a forensic accountant who'd analyzed my mother's financial records. Mrs. Harrison had calculated everything, the accountant testified. The insurance payout would have given her approximately $400,000 after taxes and debt payments. Enough to buy a small home and live modestly for several years. She'd even researched how to invest the money for maximum returns. This wasn't an impulsive act. This was a financial strategy. When the defense called my mother to testify, I braced myself. She cried. Real tears, streaming down her face. I never meant to hurt her, she said, looking at me. I was desperate. I was drowning. I thought if I could just get through this, everything would be okay. But I wouldn't have actually done it. I couldn't. She's my daughter. I love her. The prosecutor's cross-examination was brutal. Mrs. Harrison, you say you love your daughter. Is that why you told her she was worthless? My mother flinched. I was angry. Is that why you forged her signature on a life insurance policy? I was desperate. Is that why you researched poisons and tracked her movements? I wasn't going to actually. Then why did you purchase rat poison 3 days before you planned to visit her? Silence. Mrs. Harrison, you claim you love your daughter, but you spent years treating her as worthless unless she served your purposes. You sabotaged her education. You rejected her success. And when you ran out of options, you decided she was worth more dead than alive. That's not love. That's not even desperation. That's cold-blooded, premeditated murder. My mother had no answer. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. When the verdict was read, my mother collapsed, screaming that it wasn't fair, that she'd only been trying to survive, that I had abandoned her first. I sat there with Marcus holding my hand, feeling nothing but exhaustion. 2 weeks later, we returned for sentencing. The courtroom was packed. Media had picked up the story, Mother plans murder for insurance money, and everyone wanted to see how it would end. Judge Thompson, a stern woman in her 60s, looked at my mother with barely concealed disgust. Mrs. Harrison, in my 30 years on the bench, I've seen many crimes. Crimes of passion. Crimes of desperation. Crimes of opportunity. But what you did to your daughter is among the most calculated and cold-blooded acts I've encountered. My mother kept her head down. You didn't just plan to take her life for money. You spent years destroying her spirit first. You told a 17-year-old girl with a full academic scholarship that she was worthless. You drove her from her home with nothing. And when she succeeded anyway, when she built a life despite you, you couldn't accept it. You saw her success as a threat. And then you saw her as a resource to be liquidated. Judge Thompson shuffled papers. The court has received letters on your behalf. People who say you were kind, hardworking, a good neighbor. Those things may be true, but they don't erase what you did. They don't justify it. She paused. The court has also received a victim impact statement. Ms. Harrison, would you like to address the court? I stood, my prepared statement in hand. But standing there, looking at my mother, I couldn't read the words I'd written. I spent 7 years trying to understand why you couldn't love me, I said, my voice echoing in the courtroom. I've been in therapy. I've read books about toxic parents. I've talked to other survivors of family trauma. And the conclusion I've come to is this: you couldn't love me because you didn't love yourself. My mother finally looked up at me. When I was 17, you told me I was worthless. And I believed you. I spent years working myself to exhaustion, trying to prove I had value. But the truth is, I always had value. Not because of what I could do for you, but because I'm a human being with inherent worth. I took a breath. You tried to kill me because you thought I owed you. Because you saw me as property, as an insurance policy, as a solution to your problems. But I'm not. I'm a person. And I spent 7 years becoming someone I'm proud of, someone who helps people heal from the kind of trauma you inflicted on me. I don't forgive you. I may never forgive you. But I do pity you. Because you destroyed the one thing that might have saved you, your relationship with your children. If you'd chosen love over resentment, if you'd supported me instead of sabotaging me, we could have had something real. Instead, you chose greed. You chose violence. You chose to see your daughter as worth more dead than alive. And now you'll live with those consequences. I sat down. Marcus squeezed my hand. My mother stood when Judge Thompson asked if she had anything to say. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears streaming. Zoe, I'm so sorry. I do love you. I've always loved you. I just didn't know how to show it without trying to control it. And I'm sorry for everything. Judge Thompson's expression didn't soften. Sorry doesn't undo trauma, Mrs. Harrison. Sorry doesn't erase years of psychological abuse and attempted murder. She leaned forward. You are hereby sentenced to 25 years in state prison for attempted murder. This will run consecutively with 5 years for insurance fraud, 3 years for forgery, and 2 years for stalking. Total sentence, 35 years, with possibility of parole after 25 years. The gavel came down. My mother screamed. She collapsed, wailing, as the bailiffs moved to restrain her. No, please. Zoe, please tell them. Tell them I wouldn't have done it. Please. I stood up and walked out of the courtroom. Her cries followed me into the hallway, but I didn't look back. 3 months after the sentencing, I sat in my therapy office with a new client. She was 19, fresh out of her parents' house, struggling with the guilt of cutting off her family. They tell me I'm selfish, she said, crying. That I'm abandoning them. That I'll regret it. And part of me believes them. What if they're right? What if I am a terrible person? I handed her a tissue and leaned forward. Can I tell you something? My mother told me I was worthless when I was 17. She said investing in me was a waste. And years later, when I succeeded without her, she decided I was worth more dead than alive. She literally planned to murder me for insurance money. The girl's eyes widened. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand something. When parents tell you you're selfish for pursuing your own life, for setting boundaries, for choosing yourself, that's manipulation. That's control. That's them being unable to see you as a separate person with your own value. But what if I'm wrong? She whispered. What if I'm making a mistake? Then you'll make a mistake on your own terms, I said. You'll learn from it, grow from it, and move forward. But staying in a toxic situation because you're afraid of being wrong? That's not noble. That's self-destruction. She cried harder, but I could see the relief in her eyes. The permission to choose herself. This was my work now. This was my purpose. I turned my trauma into something meaningful. I helped people who'd been told they were worthless discover their value. I helped people who'd been manipulated learn to trust themselves. I helped people who'd been abused find their voice. And I was good at it. Really good. Marcus and I had dinner every week now. He'd gotten therapy too, working through his guilt and his own manipulation at our mother's hands. I got a letter from her, he told me one evening. From prison. She wants me to visit. Are you going to? I asked. He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Part of me wants to understand. Part of me wants to hear her explain how she justified it. But part of me knows that nothing she says will make it make sense. You don't owe her anything, I said. Not a visit. Not forgiveness. Not understanding. Whatever you choose, it should be for you, not for her. He nodded. What about you? Would you ever visit her? I thought about it. Maybe. Someday. Not for her, but for me. For closure. But not yet. I'm not ready. And I wasn't. Maybe I never would be. But I was okay with that. I'd built a life I was proud of. I had a career that fulfilled me. I had friends who loved me unconditionally. I had a brother who'd chosen me over the parent who'd manipulated us both. I was happy. Genuinely, authentically happy. My mother had tried to destroy me. First psychologically, then literally. And she'd failed. I was still here. Still thriving. Still growing. That was my revenge. Not hurting her, but living so well, so fully, so authentically that her rejection became irrelevant. I survived. I succeeded. I won. Not because she lost, but because I refused to let her define my worth. 6 months later, I gave a keynote speech at a conference for trauma therapists. I told my story, all of it. The rejection, the struggle, the success, the attempted murder, the trial. When I finished, the applause was deafening. A young woman approached me afterward, tears in her eyes. My father told me I was a disappointment when I chose art school over law school, she said. I felt guilty for 3 years. But hearing your story, I realize I'm not selfish for choosing my own life. I'm just trying to survive. I hugged her. You're not just surviving. You're thriving. And that's everything. That night, I wrote in my journal, something I'd started doing in therapy. Dear 17-year-old Zoe, I wrote, you're going to leave home with nothing. You're going to struggle. You're going to fail and get back up and fail again. You're going to work yourself to exhaustion. You're going to cry in library bathrooms and wonder if you made the right choice. But you're also going to make it. You're going to graduate. You're going to become a therapist. You're going to help people. You're going to build a life so beautiful, so meaningful, that you'll barely recognize yourself. And your mother? She's going to try to destroy you. First with words, then with actions. She's going to tell you you're worthless, and then she's going to try to prove it by taking your life. But she'll fail. Because you're not worthless. You never were. You're extraordinary. You're resilient. You're brave. And you're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're going to be happy. Love, 25-year-old Zoe. I closed my journal and looked around my apartment. My cozy, safe, beautiful apartment that I'd earned with my own work. My own worth. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Dinner at my place Sunday? Jessica wants to practice cooking for the wedding. I smiled and texted back, I'll be there. This was my life now. Chosen family. Meaningful work. Hard-won peace. My mother said I was worthless to her. And she was right about one thing. I am worthless to her. Because I'm not currency. I'm not an investment. I'm not a backup plan. I'm a person. A whole, complete, valuable person. And that's the best revenge of all. If you're watching this and you're dealing with a parent or family member who makes you feel worthless, who treats your dreams as inconveniences, who tells you you're not enough, I need you to hear this. They're wrong. You're not worthless. You're not a burden. You're not responsible for fixing their problems or sacrificing your future for theirs. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family. And when they come back, and they often do when they need something, you get to decide what that relationship looks like. You get to decide if they've earned a place in your life. That's not selfish. That's self-preservation. That's survival. My mother told me I was worthless, and I spent 7 years proving her wrong. Not to her, but to myself. I built a life worth living. I became a person worth knowing. And you can too. Stay strong. Set boundaries. Choose yourself. You're worth so much more than anyone who makes you feel small will ever understand. Thanks for listening to my story. I'm Zoe. And I survived.